All right, great. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so very, very much for deciding to stop in and join us on this very, very, very historic night. And I'm going to use my little statement again, unless you are a rock at the bottom of the ocean, has not gotten past you that the New York grand jury voted to indict Mr. Trump. So that is kind of our big historic news for today. This is the first time in US history that a former president has been indicted. He's not the first one to deserve it, but he's the first one where they actually did it. So I want to thank all of you who have joined us from tearing yourselves away from your televisions so that we will go ahead, get going with our presentation so that you can go back to staring at the television and sort of watching this moment in history. So I am sharing my screen tonight. We are going to talk about three very, very different races. We're going to talk about Virginia. We're going to talk about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And in between the Wisconsin Supreme Court race and Virginia, we will be talking about another small election that has us rather excited because it's internal. So I'm going to just do a quick where we are on the Milwaukee phone banks, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jake. Now, we currently have two Milwaukee phone banks running. We've got our first one, which went up in February, right after the primary. That is only Black voters. That phone bank, as you can see, had 55,000 calls. We are nearly done. There are 53,000 calls left. We just put up a Hispanic voters phone number. And again, this is just Milwaukee. That's a relatively small one, but it's got 4,100 calls left. So what I'm going to do is let Jake talk to you about what's going on the ground in Wisconsin. For those of you who may not know, Jake is our new IT director, and he lives in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that Jake can share his. And Jake, take it away.
I gotta turn off. I gotta turn off this. How do I change my view? Here we go. I gotta go back to gallery because it's just very distracting to try to talk to the public when you just see your giant face staring back at you. So this is much better. Now I get to see you all. Hello, good evening. Wonderful to be with you again. I've been introduced to this group before, so I hope everyone's had a chance to hear that and know who I am. But if this is the first time you're meeting me, hello, I'm Jake. I have been with the Center for Common Ground since January and have been closely working with Andrea since about 2019. So have been on the sidelines for a long time, and then there was just a kind of convergence of opportunities whereby I could work for the center on solving some of their IT challenges, and the center could work in Wisconsin solving some of my democracy challenges. So this has been a wonderful, a wonderful partnership. So I am the man on the ground. What can I tell you about how the race is going? We don't have any polls, so it's hard to know exactly how that is. However, can I just take a minute to say that this is a day that once the phone banks have stopped, we should really just take a deep breath and acknowledge what a historic and wonderful day it is that it's Presidential Indictment Day, and let the race breathe until tomorrow morning when the phone banks open again. That is what I'm going to be doing. But yes, speaking about the race that I'll be focused again entirely on once tomorrow morning starts up. I feel mixed about it. I feel like there's reasons to be hopeful, and I feel that there's reasons to be a little concerned. So I addressed the Bay Area Coalition last night, and what I told them was that Waukesha County has booked more early votes than Dane County. And if you know Wisconsin, you know that the two main progressive vote centers are the cities of Madison and Dane County and the city of Milwaukee. And then there's, there's other population centers outside of that. But Waukesha County is a very arch conservative vote center. So that, it's not definitive, but it's just a little concerning that one of these centers has booked more votes than Dane County has. And one of the reasons for that might be that we had a freak snowstorm last Saturday. So we, I don't know what the temperature is like where you all are, but we had 8 inches of snowfall in Dane County last Saturday. It's almost gone. And that stopped about 129 shifts that had been scheduled, and about 5,000 doors that were supposed to have been knocked did not get knocked. And so we've been playing catch up this week. There's been a lot of calls for volunteers to go knock doors, and we just want to make sure that everyone who was going to vote before we got hit by a freak snowstorm is still going to vote afterwards. One of the other big pieces of news was the debate last week. So this is the only meeting of the two candidates. Janet Protasiewicz has basically felt like she is in the front, and so has not agreed to additional meetings, which is a reasonable strategy for a front runner. And so the two candidates have only had one meeting, and it was brutal and ugly. And I think everyone is glad that there's only one. Because basically what they got to do is relitigate their TV ads live. And their TV ads have been just really, really discouraging. It's just an absolute mud fest here. And the number that I saw yesterday was that $33 million has been spent on advertising in this race, making it the most expensive judicial race in history. And the previous one was last year, and that was at 22 million. So it's already 50% more expensive than the last most expensive judicial election in history. So what we are doing with our postcards, especially with our phone calls, is we are talking with people who may be just seeing incredibly negative advertisement, and it's negative on both sides, folks. It is down and dirty on both sides, and they may just be deciding to tune out and turn off. And so what we are able to do is be the antidote to that and talk with people about how important it is to get back in touch with their values, right? And what motivates them, and how important it is to be able to act on their values in voting in this election, and to make sure that they have all the information that they need to be able to cast their vote. So we created a bit of a fun challenge, a way to kind of make things fun and make things perhaps get a few more phone calls this week by keeping score, basically, and creating a leaderboard that you all may have seen in our Slack channel. So thank you. You have responded to this challenge overwhelmingly. I haven't seen today's totals, but from Tuesday and Wednesday this week, we did more than double the number of phone calls from our phone banks Tuesday and Wednesday last week. So that's just remarkable. And I see Sue Cameron is here tonight, and she is She is our leaderboard #1 spot as of the end of last night, beginning of this morning. So we will see how she does tomorrow morning. But I'm sure she will defend, and I hope you all will challenge her for the top spot, because as of this morning, you could get on the top 10 of our leaderboard, and I'm going to put that link in chat, by the way. You could get on the top 10 after about an hour of calling. So that's really not anything that you couldn't catch up with. And you could probably overtake Sue in 2 hours. She's
Not
made
if
some
I
calls.
put in 3.
Yeah, so anyway, so this is great, right? This is exactly what we want to see. Bring out a little bit of competition spirit, because it is a competition. We are in a competition. And so we need you all, folks, to kind of find your own competitive spirit, and to put in all the calls that we need, because I mean, it's life or death here in Wisconsin, right? Like, that's the truth. But this is something that we can do to make it fun and celebratory as well. So our top 3 finishers on the leaderboard, as well as all the people that make calls this week, we're going to have some special recognition for at our fun Thursday night debrief after the election. And so I hope that you all will do at least a few phone calls so that you can be part of that celebration. I want to give a special shout out to our postcarding team. So we had 148,000 postcards go out. And I'm sure many of you tonight are organizers that have tens and hundreds and maybe thousands of people behind you, that you've been packaging addresses and postcards and doing the incredible work of the postcard network to make all of that happen. And so I am just amazed every time. This is my first campaign with the Center for Common Ground, and my first opportunity to really see the postcarding effort go out, and just the organic way these networks have grown and spread is just. I'm a engineer and a computer scientist, you know, in my original training, and so being able to just see the way that systems come together organically, it's just really fun and enriching for me. So I've just been really pleased to be part of the phone bank team and see all this happen, and I really just want to celebrate all of your efforts at making this possible. I also want to share with you something that that you might not get to see that often. One of our postcards came back. So if you can see my screen, this is the postcard that Norma Ballantyne received. Now, she is our main contact at Souls to the Polls, which is our partner organization in Milwaukee for rideshare. So this Ride to the Polls number goes to Norma. And it has been so much fun working with her. And so she called me up and she said, "Is this you?" When she received our postcard. And I said, "Yep, that's us." And so she thanked us, and she was very glad to receive it. And so you all, you know, I don't know if we'll ever be able to find Karen from California. The postmark is California, who had Norma Ballantyne on her list, but she was very grateful for that. And she also, the next day, she sent me a text message that that she had gotten a call from someone who received one of our postcards and had called Souls to the Polls to request a ride. And she said, "Thank God that I received this postcard, because I needed a ride, and that was the only way." So we have high praise, and we have much gratitude from folks on the ground here for all of the effort in the postcarding. So I am just going to share one last time my screen here so that you all can see this beautiful leaderboard, and we can give props to Sue again. But look how tenuous that lead is, Sue. Yeah, I'm just a little worried. I'm just a little worried that someone might overtake. So anyway, so you can come to the link I put in the chat. It's right here as well, wivoter.info/leaderboard. And you can see it'll be updated tomorrow morning by 9 a.m. With all the totals from today. And then you can also conveniently sign up for one of our guided phone banks. That is, links are right there next to it. So I'll stop there, and Andrea, I don't know if you have any questions or anything else you'd like me to address, but that's the view from Wisconsin.
Great. Now, Jake, there was one question in the chat. How much effect do you think the crime ads have had?
I mean, without polling, that's just really hard to say, right? We watched Mandela Barnes have what seemed like an insurmountable lead going into September this year. And, it turns out that tens of millions of dollars of super PAC spending on television advertisement in a, what is a very racist and very white state makes a difference. So we saw, if like a 50% to, 42 or something like that, 57 to 42 evaporate in the span of just a few weeks of negative television advertising. So I don't know what to tell you other than, what we're all doing is acting like everything we do every day is the difference between winning and losing this election. Right? We don't have the comfort of assuming it's a safe bet. We don't have polls that, I mean, honestly, with as hard as this race would be to poll, would probably just mislead us either way. We just have to get up and act like, we will wish we had done everything we could the day after the election. And so this is our opportunity to do that.
One of the other really important reasons why we are concentrating on Black, and since we are going to make it through those numbers, the Hispanic voters in Milwaukee, was one of the election officials made a point of bragging that he had been able to successfully disenfranchise 37,000 Black and brown voters in the city of Milwaukee. Now, what we are hearing from a number of the Black voters that we talked to is that what election? They are unaware of the election. So a lot of the noise is just missing them. So again, there's a lot we only leave messages for, but many of the ones that we have spoken to have gone, there's an election, and then we just walk them through the whole thing. So yes. And then we have another question. Did all the postcards get done?
We exceeded our goals multiple times on the postcard team. So we had originally set the stretch goal for the Black voters in Milwaukee. That was about 85,000 addresses. And it became clear after like one day of putting out the call there, that we were gonna exceed that. And so we added Racine and Madison. And that was only another, I think, 7,000 addresses or something like that. So so we ripped through that very quickly. And so then we were able to do all Black voters statewide and add Hispanic voters in Milwaukee, Racine, and Madison as well. And that brought us up to, I think, about 143,000. And then we said, all right, we're just going to do all Black and all Hispanic voters all over the state. And that took us up to, I think, 218 or something like that were good addresses. 218,000. And so we were able to ship about 148,000 of those. So we didn't reach every voter of color, every Black and brown voter in the state, but we did, break through our goals about 3 or 4 or 5 times. And so that is definitely something to be celebrated. Win or lose, this group, this network put in an amazing effort to get postcards done and make sure that voters know that there is an election happening in spring of 2023 when they are not expecting it, and everything that they need to have in order to be able to cast their ballot.
All right, thank you, Jake. And one of, again, the really important things about postcards and the way we do postcards is the information that we put on those postcards. All right, that is great. I'm going to share my screen again. We have already talked about where we are with phone banks, and Jake put up the great leaderboard. Our phone banks are at centerforcommonground.org/phone banks with an S. And when you go there, you will see this lovely Wisconsin Supreme Court section. And oh, this is the old picture. There's actually two buttons there now for the Milwaukee Supreme Court election. Now, we've got national guided phone banks on the first, second, third, and fourth. So we are calling even on election day. Any voter that we can't get out to the polls, we want to get them. These phone banks are on the leaderboard, links to sign up. The phone banks are also on our website on the phone banks page. And then Jake already said, we've sent out 148,000 postcards. And I always like to show a sample of the postcards. They should all already have been mailed. And that is a wrap on Wisconsin. We will be back on April 6th to do the actual wrap after the election is over. We will be taking a good hard look into what happened. Now, I want to head back down south where we normally work, and I want to give kudos and props to our Cobb County Democracy Center. They actually chose to get very, very, very involved in a local race for a new city that formed during the November 8th election down in Georgia. So that new city, Mableton, is electing their very first mayor and their very first city council. It is a nonpartisan race, and the local democracy center, they put together their own scripts. They've been holding candidate forums. As a matter of fact, that's why they're not here tonight. They are actually holding a candidate forum and helping folks get to meet the candidates. So right now, we do have phone banks running. The original race was earlier. It was on March 21st, and it ended up going into a runoff for the mayor and 4 of the 6 districts. So people will be starting to early vote April 10th through 14th, and the election day will actually be on April 18th. We just put these phone banks up the other day. So on April 4th, Wisconsin is over. So if you are a phone banker and you just love making those phone calls, we're going to probably have some calls left for you down in Mableton, Georgia, to help those voters get used to. You're going to be electing your new city leadership for 2 years. Talk about having that opportunity to choose what direction you want your city to go in. So again, we haven't made a lot of calls. We just put these phone banks up, but this is exactly what we had hoped our democracy centers would do, that they would engage locally at the very, very local levels. and I'll be working with them tomorrow, getting canvassing set up so they can go and knock on some doors. All right, now, Virginia. The elections of the year are really going to be in Virginia. And Virginia is really shaping up to be a state with some major contrast going on. On February 26th, there was a firehouse primary for Senate District 9. Remember, on February 21st, yes, they held another election 5 days after a congressional election. We sent the first African-American woman to Congress in State Senator Jennifer McClellan. That meant that her Senate seat is going to be, or was, open, and we are currently in a huge budget fight in Virginia. And so the party did not want to be down one senator as we go into that budget fight. So this is going to be interesting. Now, a firehouse primary, 5 days notice, we found out where the voting locations were going to be 3 days before the primary election. So you can see the numbers aren't particularly huge, but we only had 3 days. And so this is what we ended up with. So it wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. It was what you get with a race where you've got 3 days to do voter turnout. What I want to do now is compare that race to the general race, which they literally just ran. So Lamont Bagby, the person that we expected, really did win the race. So I want you to think about this. We knew who the candidates were basically in February, and an election about a month later, the turnout, this is all that we got. We did not engage at all in this race. We knew that it was going to go, because it's the majority Black district, we knew which direction it was going to swing. There was no changing it. And then we also wanted to see what difference our phone calls and our texts would make. And so this is what we got to see. Now, the original primary from February 23rd to February 26th, we made roughly 7,700 calls. And when we look at 3 elections that literally were run back to back, CD4, February 21st, SD9 primary, February 26th, SD9 general, March 21st. You can see we looked at the 2 counties that were constant in all the races and look at the difference in turnout. Now, the city of Richmond is probably half of Senate District 9. The candidate who won is a sitting delegate in Henrico County. So again, Henrico would have about 11,000 of those votes are in Henrico. So again, in February, for a wild and crazy special election, these were the totals. With 3 days notice, for a primary, 5,700 voters. And for the general, with the full early voting and multiple early voting locations and the State Board of Elections running it with all the normal precincts, this is what we got. So it really gives you a chance to see contacting Black voters in any district and really, with the right message, make a major difference on turnout. All right, now, what are we looking at in Virginia? In Virginia, because our state elections are not held on even numbered years, we will be having our elections based on redistricting, and our primary is June 20th. In November, all 140 seats of the Virginia General Assembly will be up for election. So in the Senate, we have a Democratic majority, 22 Democrats, 18 Republicans. In the House, it is the opposite, 47 Dems to 51 Republicans. And interestingly enough, Virginia has no independents in either chamber. Now, in 2021, people who were part of Indivisible, Sister District, a lot of other groups in California, New York, Massachusetts, you may have done work for some of the Democratic candidates who lost. And their elections were very, 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 very close. So Martha Mugler, who was in Hampton Roads, the percentages were 49.03% to 49.36%. Josh Cole, or Reverend Josh Cole in Nova, 48.95% to 50.95%. What's really important to know about every one of these races is the candidate who lost had 2 to 5 times the amount of money of the candidate who won. So we can never just assume that money is going to make the race. So the governor in Virginia actually had reverse coattail. So when the governor lost, he took a number of candidates with him. So this is what we're looking at in Virginia right now in the House. There are 37 districts that are Republican, 31 districts that are Democratic, and there are 32 brand new districts where they could go in whatever direction you wanted. Now, see all this red in Virginia? With the exception of the area right around the ocean, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, most of this is rural. And the blue areas that you see, that's the urban part of Virginia. So Virginia, like most southern states, is very, very, very rural. Now, in 2023, in brand new districts that only have a small piece of their old district, we've got Josh Cole, Alex Askew, and LaShurie's Aird that are running. Now, LaShurie's, interestingly enough, is not running for her old House seat. She is running for a Senate seat. So these districts look very different now than they did literally a year ago. We've got a number of Senate primaries that we're going to be very, very interested in. Senate District 18, where we have two Black incumbent senators, Senator Louise Lucas, Senator Lionel Sproul. SD 29, where we have Delegate Elizabeth Guzman trading up and running against Senator Jerry McPike. In Senate District 32, we have two delegates who decided they were going to run for Senate and now are in the same Senate district. In Senate District 33, we have Jennifer Carroll Foy, candidate for governor in 2021, running against former delegate Hala Ayala, who was the candidate for lieutenant governor in 2021. And now Senate District 13 has this very interesting group of two women and a man running for that Senate seat. Currently, that is Senator Joe Morrissey, who, interestingly enough, is a senator in a majority Black district. And there are two Black women, former delegate Cherise Aird and Angela Rowe, running for that seat. So as I said, the matchups in Virginia are absolutely fascinating. So I've already shown you the way that the Virginia House currently looks and the Virginia Senate. And this is what our work schedule is going to be. Addresses for postcards for the primary will be available April 21st. We will probably open one, maybe two phone banks on April 21st. We will begin texting on May 1st. And again, remember, Virginia has 45 days of early voting. So early voting in Virginia for the June 20th primary will begin on May 7th. So that's what's shaping up in Virginia. So are there any questions for me, for Jake, about Virginia, Georgia, or Wisconsin? You can raise your hand, you can put them in the chat. And again, we will be back on the 6th to let you know what happened in Wisconsin. All right. Seeing, okay, let's look. All right, yes. Oh, all right, this is a very good question. How do I explain to my postcard writers that primary postcards are important? Well, primary postcards are very, very important because one of the things we're going to be looking at is, in that particular district, do we have a lot of voters who don't normally vote in primaries? And that really is going to be true of pretty much any primary in Virginia. Our Black and Hispanic voters generally do not vote in primaries. What we have found is if we can get a voter who normally does not vote in a primary election, that makes them probably 80% to even 85% likely that they will show back up for the general because now they're invested. So they've shown up to vote, they're going to come and they're going to vote again. So primaries are important. And we like to tell the voters, you are going to get an opportunity to choose who will be running to represent you in November. So again, in November, if you don't like the candidates and you didn't vote in the primary, Well, there's not a lot I can tell you. All right. Yes, thank you. Voting in primaries changes their voting habits, which is really what we want. Exactly. So they get to use their voice and they can make a real difference in who represents them. And a good part of that is really what democracy centers are all about. So a lot of the seats that were lost in 2021 were on Virginia's ocean side over in Hampton Roads. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens in that part of Virginia. Because as I showed you, Virginia is a very rural state. All right. Do we have anything else? All right. I am. Yes. Oh, go ahead, Sue.
Is this a particularly robust primary, like with a lot of people running? Have you seen more people wanting to run for office in the last, 4 or 5 years? Or is this normal?
It's a very strange primary. 18 incumbents resigned. And they resigned because they were put in a district with another incumbent. So that was why most left. And we had Democrats and Republicans resign. We have one race where there are 4 Republicans running for delegacy. I mean, what is that? We normally don't see that. The other thing that happened is Virginia had some very, very, very older legislators. One had been in the state legislature for 48 years, another for 46, another for 45. They pretty much were the power brokers in their chambers. And they decided they did not want to run again because 2 of them were involved in a primary. And they're like, at my age, I really don't want to deal with that. So the landscape in Virginia is going to be drastically changed by the results of this election because so many of the experienced legislators are leaving.
And is are the districts gerrymandered or not? Do you have an independent commission that sets
Well,
districts?
the Virginia districts were redone 3 times by a special master. And the gerrymander on the congressional side was a gender gerrymander. They gave all the guys districts that were R30 or D30, and the women got D1, D3, and R2. So it was a very interesting gerrymander. As you saw, 37 Republican districts, 32 Democratic districts, and 31 brand new districts where, hey, whoever is the best candidate, you can win this thing. So it's going to be very, 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 very interesting. Now, what is critical, though, is Virginia does need to win this race because at stake, our current governor, and in Virginia, the governor is the god of restoration of rights. Our current governor has taken our restoration of rights procedures all the way back to pre-2010. And he said, nope, there's no more automatic restoration of rights. And there's going to be a procedure, we don't know what it is. And so it's now totally up in the air. So people who did not get their rights restored previously now may find themselves subject to waiting periods. We know the governor is talking about, oh, well, there's going to be one process for violent felonies. There's going to be another process for nonviolent felonies. In Virginia, a violent felony really has nothing to do with violence. It has to do with what are the crimes that Black people commit. Oh, those are all violent felonies. It's again, it's Virginia. So we have this very skewed, or had this very skewed view of justice. The other thing at risk is, of course, abortion rights and all the progress that we made with voting rights. In the legislature this year, we saw 40 bills attempting to reinstate photo ID, get rid of early voting. We have 45 days. Some people wanted to take it down to 10. Other people were like, get rid of it. They want to get rid of same-day voter registration. Everything that we won in 2021, they want to remove it. So that's what's at stake in Virginia, not to mention education. The governor has come in and basically said, oh, we don't want anybody to feel bad about anything. And he's taken a huge eraser to history. So all those things are really what's at stake in Virginia. And it's very important to remember in 2023, as goes Virginia, will potentially go the nation in 2024. Our governor wants to play on the national stage. He is tall, he is handsome, he can look directly into the camera and lie to you. People want to trust him. And they did. I know there are many in Northern Virginia who really wish they could get their vote back, but that's not how elections work. So yes, Virginia is a set of very, very, very important races. And just like Wisconsin, however this goes, other states are going to be looking at, oh, do we take our cues from Virginia and do what Virginia did, be it good or be it bad? So we were the former capital of the Confederacy, and there are people trying very hard to bring it back. All right, yeah. Roxanne, most of the important races overlap with the Virginia Beach Norfolk Democracy Center, the House races and the Senate races. There's the very interesting race down in Petersburg, Chesterfield, a little bit of Colonial Heights that impacts the mini democracy center in Petersburg, Chesterfield. So we've got a race down there. And there is also the Nova Democracy Center is impacted by the race in Stafford. So yes, we do have some democracy centers that it's just lucky that they happen to be in the right place, because they're going to have some very important work to do. And yay, shout out to my fellow Virginians. Yeah, you're living here with me. You know what this is. All right. Well, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. And Carrie is making a very good point. A good, strong Senate and House would allow us to pass the constitutional amendment removing felony disenfranchisement. In Virginia, we passed the constitutional amendment in 2021. However, constitutional law requires that we pass it in 2 consecutive years before the ballot measure can go out to the citizens of Virginia for ratification. Yes, Hampton Roads has a democracy center, the Virginia Beach Norfolk Democracy Center, which happens to be run by Janice Gay, our phone bank manager. So yes, theirs is virtual. They don't have a permanent space yet, but they will have probably by June. So Denise, thank you for that question. All right, folks, let's go back to staring at our televisions to see what is going to continue going on this very, very historic day. So thank you very much, Jake, for letting us know what is going on in Wisconsin. And thank you all for tearing yourselves away from the TV to follow what we are doing. So take care, everybody. Good night and thank you.